The UK refused to join the US and India in requiring travellers from China to take COVID tests. Travellers at Hong Kong Airport are delighted there's no need to take COVID tests upon arrival anymore. Japan slightly relaxes restrictions on flights from Hong Kong. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The UK will not join the United States, India and Italy in requiring COVID-19 tests on travellers from China after Beijing's decision last month to lift stringent zero-COVID policies. Tracy Furness has more.
The UK decided not to follow the United States, Italy and India to impose COVID-19 restrictions for arrivals from China, including requiring tests for the coronavirus, according to Reuters' report Thursday afternoon. The United States will impose mandatory COVID-19 tests for travellers from China beginning January 5th. All air passengers 2 years old and older will require a negative result from a test no more than 2 days before departure from China, including Hong Kong and Macau. Passengers who test positive more than 10 days before a flight can provide documentation of recovery in lieu of the negative test result. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States also said Americans should reconsider travel to China, Hong Kong and Macau. Meanwhile, Australia is monitoring the situation but is making no immediate change to its rules about allowing travellers from China into the country.
Well, we'll continue to monitor the circumstances that are occurring in China and in other parts of the world as well as we do. We'll take the appropriate advice from the health experts and follow that advice. There's no change in the travel advice at this point in time, but we're continuing to monitor the situation. Our priority is to keep Australians as safe as possible.
China this month lifted its strict COVID regime of lockdowns and extensive testing, on course for its economy to completely reopen next year. The lifting of restrictions means COVID is reportedly spreading extensively in many provinces and cities. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Hong Kong reported 24,895 new COVID cases today. 62 more patients died, a recent new high. 41 care homes for the elderly and disabled reported new COVID cases involving some 66 residents and 15 staff members. 78 schools have reported 193 infection cases. Some 1,306 infections were imported. One case involving the BQ.1.1 strain and 6 more cases involving XBB's variants. The Centre for Health Protection said the temporary specimen collection centre at the airport will stop operating from today. The Metropark Hotel Kowloon Quarantine Centre will also stop accepting new infected residents. Starting today, overseas travellers do not need to undergo PCR tests after arriving in Hong Kong. Many people at the airport were pleased with the change of policy. Some said the change will attract more people to come to the city. Mimo Singai reports.
In the past, overseas or Taiwanese travellers had to complete a PCR test at the Hong Kong International Airport and another one on the second day after their arrival. But the government cancelled the policy yesterday. This morning, this tourist arrived from Singapore, and he said it was easier to travel without the need to do any tests.
It was very easy, it just took like 5 minutes. Normally that takes a lot of time extra, and obviously you start a little bit crying because it's always with all of the tests, right? I think it's going to increase a lot of tourism.
This traveller decided to jump on a plane at the last minute.
I haven't came to Hong Kong before they changed the regulations. It was amazing. They changed it so I came perfectly. I booked the last ticket to see my friends and family in Hong Kong. Yeah, it's amazing, you know.
And these people came to Hong Kong for a family trip.
Relieved.
She said it was a relief after knowing that most of the COVID measures had been removed before traveling. While people arriving from overseas will no longer be required to take PCR tests, they are advised to take rapid antigen tests for their first 5 days in the city. Travelers said it is now much more convenient to come to Hong Kong after the dropping of the PCR tests. Many came to the city to visit family and friends and to spend the new year together. Mimosa 9, TVB News.
As from today, close contacts of COVID patients can go to work as usual after the government scrapped quarantine for them. Medical experts say people are now exposed to higher risks of infection, adding organizations should balance their own risks and set out their own policies to prevent more outbreaks. 4 staff members at this elderly care home in Kwai Chung were classified as close contacts after a worker tested positive yesterday. The 4 were supposed to undergo 5 days of quarantine as close contacts, but they were at work today after the government announced it has relaxed its quarantine policies. Still, some employees are worried they might infect the residents at the care homes. This employee said she will wear a face shield and stay further away from the residents when feeding or talking to them. The care home, meanwhile, welcomes the move, saying the quarantine order has been eroding its manpower. But the operator noted workers are required to do RATs every day and PCR tests every other day, while residents will be doing daily RATs. Meanwhile, a medical specialist says currently the risk of transmission in the community is high, adding it is inevitable that the virus will spread to care homes if there are no closed-loop arrangements in place.
There is limited sensitivity for the rapid antigen test. Sometimes we need repeated testing on 2 or more consecutive days before we can get a positive result. The current relaxation, in fact, put the duty to control the infection to individuals and also to individual enterprises. They should develop their own policy in relation to the special working environment, especially whether they are serving high-risk clients and the working conditions in the enterprise, is that conducive to a massive outbreak?
Leung also urged high-risk groups such as the elderly to get a booster jab to better cope with the expected surge of infections. With most of Hong Kong's social distancing measures lifted today, residents can now enjoy their meals at restaurants without scanning the vaccine pass. But some restaurant owners said they will not increase dining capacity straight away. Christy Khan reports.
Starting today, residents no longer need to scan the vaccine pass to enter designated premises, such as bars and restaurants. Reactions to the relaxation have been mixed. This man said he's concerned about the changes as now he has no clue as to whether the people close to him are vaccinated or not. This woman said she's not worried as long as everyone pays attention to their personal hygiene. The restrictions on the number of people allowed per table and the 1.5 meters distance between tables have both been scrapped. But some restaurant owners said they are not going to be making changes immediately. This owner said he will keep the current dining capacity in place as he believes the pandemic situation is still serious and he's facing a shortage of staff. This woman said she's happy to see Hong Kong returning to its pre-pandemic environment. But this resident said she's worried the city will experience a new surge of COVID cases after the Lunar New Year, as the border between Hong Kong and the mainland is set to reopen. Expressing concern about the coronavirus risk to her elderly relatives, she said she will avoid dining out with a large group of people. Meanwhile, the government said the mask mandate will not be cancelled for the time being. Professor Lau Yulong, a government health advisor, said the government could consider gradually loosening the restrictions after the Lunar New Year. He also said the government should consider cancelling the quarantine requirement for COVID-infected patients once daily infection cases drop to 15,000. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Japan earlier announced that flights from Hong Kong can only land at 4 designated airports in Japan as from tomorrow. However, in a development that will have delighted many holidaymakers, Japanese authorities said they will ease the restrictions. The country will now allow passenger flights from Hong Kong to land at 3 more airports in Japan if the travellers had not been to the Chinese mainland within the 7 days before their departure. Christy Khan again.
Earlier this week, the Japanese government announced it will limit flights from China, including Hong Kong and Macau, only allowing arrivals to land at 4 designated airports in Tokyo, Osaka, and Nagoya from Friday. The restriction came after China relaxed most of its anti-COVID measures and is planning to reopen its borders. The Hong Kong government said last night that the flight restrictions will affect around 60,000 travelers. However, Japanese authorities announced today they are making changes to the plan, allowing flights departing from Hong Kong and Macau to land at 3 more airports, including New Chitose Airport in Hokkaido, Fukuoka Airport, and Naha Airport in Okinawa with a condition. Flight passengers must not have traveled to mainland China in the past 7 days before their departure. However, in a statement, Cathay Pacific said the airline company will have to operate a reduced flight schedule from Friday onwards in order to comply with the latest restrictions. Some flights to Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, Sapporo, and Fukuoka will be cancelled from December 30th to January 12th. The city's flagship carrier said full refunds will be arranged for affected customers. Hong Kong Express said they will have to cancel 41 flights from Hong Kong to Japan in January. But the return flights to the city will be operated as scheduled. Also, the 2 airline companies said that passengers traveling to Fukuoka, Sapporo, and Okinawa will have to sign a self-declaration form to confirm that they are in compliance with the requirements set by Japanese authorities. Some travel agencies said the flight restrictions have affected their group tours to Japan due to the reduced flight schedules. In response to the revised restrictions imposed by the Japanese authorities, the SAR government said the arrangements are unreasonable. The government added that it will continue to request the Japanese authorities to lift the curbs. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Welcome back to TVB News. The Kremlin confirmed Russian President Vladimir Putin will be speaking with President Xi Jinping soon. Russian state news agency TASS said President Xi Jinping is due to speak to President Vladimir Putin before the end of the year without giving any details of the timing or format. TASS added the 2 sides will release details at a suitable time. Putin met Xi Jinping in Beijing before Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, when the Russian leader said there are no limits between the partnership of the 2 countries. But Putin reportedly admitted that China did express concerns and doubts to Russia over Ukraine in September. Several regions of Ukraine, including its capital Kiev, were facing a Russian missile attack this morning, as Moscow continues to target the country's vital infrastructure. Air raid sirens rang out across Ukraine. In Kiev, the regional administration said the air defense system were activated to fend off the ongoing missile attack. Ukrainian authorities in several regions said some incoming Russian missiles were intercepted. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of energy terrorism for targeting the country's essential utilities amid freezing winter temperatures. The World Health Organization has estimated that between 2 to 3 million Ukrainians will leave their homes this winter in search of warmth and safety. Bangladesh has launched its first ever metro rail service called the Mass Rapid Transit, or MRT, in its densely populated capital, Dhaka, on Wednesday. The project was largely funded by a Japanese company, but Chinese firms have also played an important role. This as the South Asian country strives to move from the least developed nation to a developing nation by 2026 on a World Trade Organization list with the help of investment from China, Japan and others. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina inaugurated the service accompanied by Japanese Ambassador Kiminori Iwama and Ichiguchi Tomohide, Chief Representative of the Japan International Cooperation Agency, which largely funded the $2.8 billion project. The Mass Rapid Transit, or MRT, will initially operate on a limited capacity and is expected to grow to over 100 stations and 6 lines crisscrossing the city by 2030. A section of the first line connects a prime neighborhood on the outskirts of Dhaka with the city center. The line is expected to carry 60,000 people each hour when it is fully operational. Dhaka is one of the world's most densely populated cities with over 20 million residents. Research found the economy in Dhaka loses about $3 billion each year in lost work time due to traffic jams. Bangladesh is striving to move from the least developed nation to a developing nation by 2026 on a World Trade Organization list, a bid which is being boosted with investment and cooperation from countries including China and Japan. In June, Prime Minister Hasina inaugurated a 6.51-kilometer-long bridge spanning the Padma River, which was built by China at a cost of about $3.6 billion. A joint venture between a subsidiary of Chinese state-owned Power China and a Thai company had been building the main depot for the MRT Line 6 at a cost of about $180 million. Daniel Rell, TVB News.
In Cambodia, at least 16 people have been killed and another 50 injured in a blaze at the Grand Diamond City Casino and Hotel in the border town of Poi Phet. Cambodian police said the fire started around midnight Wednesday and was still burning Thursday morning. Poi Phet is a border town neighboring Thailand, and the casino is popular with Thai gamblers. The casino is on the 15th floor of the complex. Police said 400 people were there at the time. Brazil's Supreme Court has banned registered gun owners from carrying firearms in the federal district, where the country's capital, Brasilia, is located, until after the inauguration of President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The move comes as tensions remain high after the nation's most controversial election in a generation, which saw leftist Lula narrowly defeated right-wing incumbent Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro supporters have been camping outside army barracks, urging the military to stage a coup. On Saturday, a man was arrested for attempting to set off a bomb in protest of the election results and said Bolsonaro's call to arms inspired him to build up an arsenal. The number of registered gun owners in Brazil has surged sixfold to around 700,000 people since Bolsonaro began loosening gun laws in 2019. Statistics show that Britain was the most popular immigration destination for Hong Kongers in the past year. Some academics believed with the gradual improvement of Hong Kong's economy, it will be beneficial for talents to come to the city for development. According to some statistics, most Hong Kongers choose to immigrate to the UK, accounting for 35%, which is 15% more than the previous year. The second most popular country is Australia. Other popular destinations include Canada, Portugal, and Ireland. In the past 2 years, around 140,000 working people left the city. To compensate the loss, the government announced a scheme of competing for talents and enterprises. Academics said while such a scheme can make up for the demand for mid-level management and technical personnel in the long run, it is difficult to solve the problem in the short term. A new website is now available for the public to view and obtain information on flowers at different locations operated by the Leisure and Cultural Services Department. The department said the website will serve as a one-stop platform for flower appreciation, adding that information of species including red leaves, cherry blossom, and rosy trumpet tree will be updated regularly. Flower viewers can obtain information such as the blossoming periods in venues operated by LCSD on the website. That's the news. Thanks for watching.